Okay, a word of wisdom to young glamping developers out there. Permitting may seem like a never-ending story, but don't lose heart. I have never seen a glamper get shut down. I've seen them give up. I've seen them get frustrated. I see them just put up their hands and walk away from the project. But I've never seen the government actually shut them down. But I'm always a bit sad when I see someone walk away from a glamping opportunity because I feel like they could have made it happen. Where there is a will, there is a way to make glamping happen on your private property. Now, I'm filming this class in early 2024, and even though I'm entering into my 6th year of glamping, I am still navigating through the permitting game. And like I said, it's a never-ending story. But allow me to walk you through that story so far with the hopes to model for you how to successfully get your operation running smoothly. There are 5 benchmarks in my journey, the first being my first letter of violation. 2021. And my story could have ended there. I got the letter of violation from the county planning department. It was a multi-page letter writing off all sorts of terms that may have been written in Greek. For all I knew, I did not understand the trouble that I was in, because in the letter it carried a tremendous threat to turn me over to the district attorney and bring charges against me for violating permitting codes. I'm just going to read you the first paragraph. It says, "You are hereby notified that the subject property is in violation of El Paso County Land Development Codes 1 building permits." Boy, sounds scary, doesn't it? And in many ways, it's supposed to be. But like pretty much every confrontation with the law, it comes with a choice: either shut down or contact the enforcement officer. I have found the latter to never be as scary as you might think. In my case, my enforcement officer helped me kick off my journey toward compliance. That led to the second benchmark in my journey, my planning meeting in January 2022. Now, I had the privilege of personally knowing a former county commissioner, an old, almost retired lawyer. He actually lives down the creek from me, and my kids have attended his yearly horse camp over the years. He has been a great friend and advisor in helping me understand my rights as well as my responsibilities in legally running a glamping operation. He represented me in my first planning meeting, an online meeting of bureaucratic bubbleheads. Don't tell him I called them bubbleheads, but they kind of are. It was an online meeting. I had an assigned planner. His name was Ryan. I had my enforcement officer. His name was Joe. I had bureaucrats, the traffic guy, the health department gal, the floodplain guy, and I had my lawyer. And together we came up with a plan to set up a recreation camp, an actual permitted use of my property, of which I'd be able to run a glamping operation. It was actually really good. I've got the video. I'll have a link to it in the resources section. You could watch the whole 1-hour video of where we walked through all the things that I needed to do to set up my recreation camp. You see, there was no code for glamping, and there's probably not a code for glamping in your area either, but there are some codes, and my lawyer put it this way: I was a square peg that needed to fit into the round hole. I needed to justify my existence and stick it in the right hole and make it fit into the county code. And this kicked off my third benchmark, the special use application. And that was half of 2022. And you know some of the story from earlier in the class where I spent a good 6 months getting all the details ready for that application. And there were a lot of them. I had an application to fill out. I had to write a letter of intent. I had a title commitment to gain. I needed a vicinity and location map to draw up. I needed a clearance letter from the United States Fish and Wildlife. I needed a mineral rights certification. I didn't even know what that was. I needed a site plan drawing. I needed a septic application. I needed proof of utilities, upgraded well permits, commercial septic plans. I needed to get signed off from our electric company, a state highway access permit, a traffic generation analysis, a water court filing, a well permit updated. There was a lot to it. But the county did give me a whole packet of boxes to check and to a list to go through, because I was becoming a developer and I needed to develop my property the way I wanted to. Now, the central part of the application was the letter of intent, one where I crafted an argument for the government of why my special use application was legit. The planning department had several criteria that I needed to follow in order to make it happen. And I bet you your jurisdiction has the same kind of criteria to go through. For me, I needed to show that I was consistent with the comprehensive or the master plan of the county. I needed to show that I was compatible with surrounding land uses. I needed to show that I mitigated any environmental impact, and I was in Preble's Jumping Mouse area, so I needed to do that. I needed to show that traffic and infrastructure was considered. I needed to show public health and safety was being abided by. I needed to show that this was a benefit to the community, and I needed to allow for public feedback. That was the final kicker, because that I did have a neighbor who was making all this trouble for me. And that's the fourth benchmark to my journey, is my neighborhood opposition. That came in the summer of 2022. That one criteria of being adaptable to my neighborhood, that's really where the problem was, and in a ways it still exists today. I have a neighbor who thinks my backyard is her backyard. Seriously, she at one point was planting gardens in my yard and it was a huge dispute between us. We had to get a surveyor out here and lawyer up and everything because she thought my yard was hers. And in one meeting, she even said back in the day there were no boundaries between our properties. It was strange. This is where the word NIMBY comes from. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but it means not in my backyard. The idea is that one neighbor looks across the fence and says, I don't want you to build that in my backyard, as if it's their backyard. And that's quite literally what this neighbor has been saying since day one, is that she doesn't want to look across the fence and see what I'm doing in my backyard. She even took it to social media and leveraged the media platform Nextdoor to try to rally up support against my glamping operation. She's since edited it, "Attention homeowners in Pine Hills and surrounding areas in Monument. The beautiful rural community of Pine Hills is about to be changed forever, starting around mid-August of this year. There's currently a plan in place to build a glamping campsite on a homeowner's 5+ acre property on Rickenbacker Avenue. The site plan, which is accessible online, calls for 6 tents that will house 4 occupants each.
On grounds, car parking for each tent, bathrooms for the dwellers, fire pits, and a barn. At full occupancy, all 6 tents will hold a total of 24 people camping on the grounds. The glamping campsite can bring in 24 outsiders per day into the Pine Hills and surrounding areas.
These outsiders will be able to come and go from the site any time of day or night. That's a safety issue! El Paso County land use codes do not allow this type of business, and that isn't true, to operate in a residential community, we're rural residential, without a special land use permit. Now that is true. And then she goes on and on about how we need to write letters of opposition. Now, this opposition rattled me quite a bit. I honestly want to be a good neighbor, and I am a good neighbor, honestly. I wish everyone would be on board with my ambitions, but I've come to realize that opposition like this is extremely common nationwide, and you should anticipate it. No matter how nice of a person you are, anticipate that you will have NIMBYs on the other side of the fence telling you they don't like looking at your tent. I encourage you to fight it with love, sticking to the principles of land ownership and legality. You see, there's something fundamentally wrong with neighbors opposing you. I see it as a form of covetousness. You see, she isn't against glamping. She's against landowners doing as much as they can to live off the fruit of their land. I've seen potential glamp owners pull back and pull out of great opportunities because of the fear of community opposition. But then I've also seen lots of glamping operators fight it and do with due diligence and get the permits that they need to run a successful glamping operation. It's too bad. I wish we could all get along, but you know what? As long as we keep winning, we'll be fine. This led to my approval in July 2022. I actually got approved what's called administratively, meaning the administration, I didn't have to go to commission and make my case. It was done administratively. The bubbleheads, I called them earlier, they got together and they said, okay, he checked all the boxes. His square peg is fitting into our round hole and we're going to approve him. And I got my special use permit and I was loud and proud after that. And you know the rest of the history. The rest of 2022 was a very successful year, fully built out in 2023 and had a phenomenal successful year. And now at the time of this class, I'm moving into an addendum to my special use to allow for more than just tents on my property. It's an appeal to be going through right after this class ends. I'll be sure to keep you posted. Two, the same neighbor is ranting and raving about my upgrade, but it's actually an upgrade to make the operation a better operation for the neighborhood. So I fully suspect that I will be approved. Now that's my story of permitting, and it's a never-ending story. Like I said, I'm going through an appeal. I'm also doing the same thing with my second property, although I don't have any opposition from the neighbors. So I expect that one to also be approved administratively. But I tell you, there were a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of waking up in cold sweats, thinking and dreaming of being shut down. And I look back at it now thinking that was a lot of worry that I didn't need to go through. So standing on this side of the journey, I'm feeling very, very good about what I learned. And now I'm teaching you about how to do it. Now in the next video, I'm going to go into the actual jurisdictions and how the government is really set up so that you're able to move forward in your jurisdiction and get your glamping operation legal.